Hi, my name's Harris Bard for Pond Life Aquatics. I have been keeping aquariums for over 20 years and I've been helping run a fish shop professionally for the past 10. And this is an Aquel Shrimp Set 30. And today I'm going to be showing you how I set up this aquarium over a month ago now, specifically to breed Cardina shrimp. Let's get into it.
First things first, we start out with this second-hand Aquel Shrimp Set 30, and I really did not go into this with too much of a plan. I saw that we could get Mosura Shrimp on a new list, and I just went for the build. I decided, as I was starting out, that I wanted to try something new as a background. Where this aquarium is going to be situated, it does sometimes get a little bit of direct sunlight. So I've been toying with the idea of blocking out light from 3 directions, but not with a solid black background. And I wanted to see how literal window glazing that has UV protection and everything on it would fare in an aquarium. So as you can see, I measured out each side, wetted it down, and the glazing went on lovely. I really like the finish with it. Now, as you can see, I decided to play with this Dymax compost seal bonding sponge, which I had been given as a tester at PATS, which is a fish trade show in Birmingham, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to carry on testing it out. As you've probably seen in previous videos, I have used this on my desktop aquarium, and I did use it in the bio build as well. This is the last I have of the Dymax sponge. For now, we are hoping to stock it very soon, and I really hope that we can. It is genuinely just the biggest pleasure to work with. You put some of this sponge in between any hardscape that you want, and then use the glue that comes with it to seal them together. And as you can see, you do get some fumes coming off of it, but you get used to it as you work. And it does just hold everything so tightly together. I decided that I wanted to use these 3 pieces of bogwood, which I genuinely just had lying around. So I connect them to a stone because I wasn't sure if they had been soaked effectively, and I didn't want to have to wait for them to sink. I placed the aquarium down next to where it was going to live with Betty Boop and hooked it up to a Wi-Fi plug so that I could control everything to do with this aquarium from my phone. And as you can see, I have some of this active substrate by Tetra left over from the desktop build that I did, and I decided to place it into a media sack and put it into the aquarium. I knew this was going to be a really heavily planted aquarium just because that's what Cardina shrimp love. So I decided to switch to a bigger media bag just to get a better spread of the substrate. As you can see, a bit of dust does come out of the bag, but I really don't mind, and the active substrate is going to be capped off, so nothing bad there. You can see me dump in quite a substantial amount of gravel to cap off this substrate, but it does look like there is much more than there is, and I am going to do a very, very heavy taper up towards the back of this aquarium. You can tell how unplanned this aquarium was just by me placing in the cave, which was the only thing that I knew I wanted in this aquarium because it gives the Cardinas a place to hide. But I don't know if I want any other additional hardscape or the orientation of the cave that I've made. So I play around as I go with this, which is kind of part of the fun with some aquascapes. And in the end, I decide not to have any of the stones. And it's at this point that I decided to just go ahead and start planting up everything. I have this Anubias Barteri cardifolia that I knew that I wanted to sit on top of this wood. I use Seachem Flourish glue to attach it to the surface. I knew I wanted some moss in this aquarium, so I had this Christmas moss which we regularly stock in our store, and I brought it home and use seacoam flourish glue to help decorate the wood. Not only does Christmas moss or any moss in general just help make any hardscape look a bit more settled in and natural, I found pretty much every species of shrimp I've ever kept love having a little bit of moss in the aquarium, just because they find food on it, they end up spending a lot of time around it. It sometimes grows algae on top of it, which they love to feed on, and I found that it's just a good space for baby shrimp to grow up around. The rest of the planting for this aquarium was leftover plants I had from Pat's that we had bought from the Tropica store. We are going to be stocking Tropica in future. The guys at Pat's said they are getting a new UK base, and I'm super excited to start getting their products in. I haven't worked with Atonia plastris in years, and I don't know why. I absolutely love it, particularly when it's grown up. This is a 1-2 grow pot, so I'm excited to see how it grows in. It was at this point that I decided to place the filtration system that I wanted to use, and I decided to go with this Dennerle corner filter. Weirdly, the first time I ever bred Cardinas was using one of these Dennerle corner filters. This is one of the newer models, which run a lot quieter, and in my opinion, they're much better, but they are much of the same. They are going to be great, and they're not going to kill any of my shrimp. I have this Opus from Tropica that I plant into some very murky water. I didn't decide to wash the gravel before I put it in because I usually don't have an issue with having slightly murky water, but I am still getting used to filming these videos, so I apologize. Bacopa Compact is another one of those plants that I haven't worked with in ages, and I used to plant it into all of my aquariums, and I am excited to get it to grow in this one. It does get a little bit stringy sometimes, so I do prefer it as a mid-ground plant as opposed to a foreground plant, but again, it's just a wonderful, really easy plant to start with. Now, it wouldn't be one of my aquariums if I didn't decide that I wanted to have a Cryptocorin species in here. I have Cryptocorin Wendetti Mi Oya, which is a new one for me. It was just what I had from Pat's. I also went with some Cryptocorin Parva. I love Cryptocorin Parva. I think it is one of the most underrated foreground plants. I think it's so pretty and so dainty, and I really think it helps tie a lot of this aquarium together. As I said, I didn't plan any of this planting. This is a foreground plant, and I'm going to put it in the foreground, which is apparent with this storage in Repens, which again is just a lovely foreground plant and is more like a carpeting species. I'd say it's much more akin to a bush than a carpet, but it does stay rather compact, particularly if you cut it back, which I definitely will be doing. And as far as an aquarium that has no plan on the planting scheme like this one does, I think that it all comes together really quite nicely initially. Now, as I fill up, it is important to say that I have remineralized RO water with Dennerle's Shrimp King Bee Salt. It is the most important part of this setup. You cannot be breeding Cardina shrimp in the UK without using a remineralization salt on either rainwater or RO water. Now, as you can see, I am going to be using a CO2 unit. This is a Tropica Nano CO2 system that I attach a inline solenoid valve to and then hook up to the main aquarium and get it going. And this is how it was looking at the end of the first day of the setup. As you can see, in comparison to my desktop aquarium, it is so much more heavily planted in, but I felt that it wasn't quite there. A couple of days later, I have added a drop checker, and you can see that there are tannins coming out of the bogwood that I decided to use. I just got home from work and I decided that
I wasn't quite happy with the level of light that the native Aquel LED light that comes with the Shrimp Set 30 was giving me, so I decided to pick up one of these LED smart plant lights because I do like the way they look, and I just wanted to give it a little bit extra on the photosynthetic scale. So I'm going to slap that on now and we'll see how we look.
The LED Smart Plant is almost identical to the stock light that comes with it. It does just have a stronger PAR rating, which hopefully should make my plants start to grow up a little bit faster than they are right now. At this point I was quite happy with how the aquarium was looking, but I thought that the wood looked a little bit too bare. So it was at this point that I decided to get my handy dandy Cobra out to remove half of the water. The reason I was doing this is because I've been dosing with Evolution Aqua, the aquascapers fertilizer, to get the plants growing a bit faster. I decided to use 3 different kinds of Bucephlandra. I went with a slightly rare species called Bucephlandra Brownie Ghost, and then I managed to get hold of 2 variations of Bucephlandra Godzilla, which is one of my favourite Bucephalandras ever, and then a new Bucephalandra for me, which is Bucephalandra filiformis, which, as you can see on the left hand side, is this slightly spiky Buce, and it was again as easy as any other Bucephalandra to work with. You can see one of them came off as I was filling up with the Bee Shrimp salt treated rainwater, but it stuck straight back down with the Sea Chem Flourish glue as it hadn't fully set at that point. I'll be honest, initially I wasn't sure about how I felt with how this aquarium looked, but it's really grown on me. There is something just so endearing and charming about an aquarium that is so thrown together. It is such a mishmash of plants without really a rhyme or a reason to them, except for more green is better for Cardinas. As the weeks went on, I continued to do weekly 50% water changes to try and get the parameters to a good space, and also because I was dosing with the Aquascaper by Evolution Aqua, and it is quite a nitrate heavy fertilizer, which is good for cycling, but it is not ideal if you don't do 50% water changes regularly, because it will cause an algae bloom. And even sometimes when you are doing 50% water changes, there will be an algae bloom regardless. A few weeks in, and this was genuinely maybe the first or even second time I decided to wipe down the front glass of this aquarium. I think that the window glazing did a fantastic job in keeping algae down. And after a few weeks, you can see the plants have really settled in. I decided to cut back my storage in and immediately replant the cuttings. I want this entire front of this aquarium just to be storage and rep ends. I really love the way this plant looks, and I think it gives the front a really full and lovely look to it. I did decide that the Hygrophilia wasn't quite cutting it for me in the back. It was just taking a little bit too long for it to grow in, so I decided to cut some of my Limnophilia sessiflora from my desktop aquarium and propagate it into the back of this aquarium. Now, I know it might just seem like I'm being impatient, and I definitely am, but there is a little bit of reason to why I want Limnophilia to be in this aquarium. I do think there is a benefit to such bushy plant species being in the aquarium itself, because it gives the place for the Cardinas to hide. And here are what I decided to breed. I've gone with Mosura Shadow Cardinas, and I love this species so much. They are very closely related to Taiwanese bee shrimp, which are a species that I at one point had bred into a colony of hundreds. And as you can see, I do not have a drop acclimator like some people do. I wish I did. So I am literally using a syringe to take out 5 to 15 milliliters of water from the bag to a cup, and then put 15 milliliters of water from the aquarium into the tank. And I repeated this process maybe 20 times over the course of half an hour, just to make sure that these guys were fully acclimated to the aquarium before they went in. Now, I think everyone should be extremely cautious when they first put their shrimp into their aquarium, particularly with Cardinas. They are very sensitive to water parameters, hence having to use RO water with a specific salt to remineralise. So just be careful when you're initially introducing them to the aquarium. I didn't feed them on the first day, or the second day for that matter, because I thought there was plenty of algae for them to be tucking into. And I just think these are the most beautiful species, as are all Cardinas. And I'm so excited to see how I can get these guys to breed. And I can't wait for the next few months.
And that's it for part 1. This is going to be a mini series on talking about how to breed Cardinas to the best of my ability. I am extremely excited to get into the process of breeding them again. So in the next video, expect for me to show you a variety of different ways of feeding your Cardinas to get the best colours out of them and get the best breeding out of them. If you have any questions on how to keep Cardina bee shrimp, then please drop a comment below. If you liked this video and want to see the part 2, then remember to subscribe. I'll be making that video in about a month's time, once I've had time to test out everything and get, you know, a good idea of what these particular Mosura shrimp like to eat. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you join us again for this pond life.